episode 3 of the Happy Ladder podcast. I'm Jessica Silver, and I'm joined by fellow authors of the Life Balance Guide,
Carol Sullivan,
Jackie Bear.
So far in this series, we've debunked some myths about what works to actually energize us. We've looked at what drains us and what energizes us. And today, we're going to look a little bit more about how we recharge and how to know when we're really running out of energy. We know we have to put petrol in the car. We know we have to put the phone on charge, but we often don't do this for ourselves. So today we're going to unpick this a little bit more, find out what's going on here and what we can do to make this better. Jackie, can you tell us a little bit more about this?
Well, I think it's definitely important to realize that we need to recharge, that recharging is not a luxury, that it's a necessity. And in the book that we wrote about life balance, we came across a study, and it was explicitly done under nurses. And nurses, due to their profession, they have the tendency to not take very good care of themselves because they put the client's interest first. So, however, when they did this research, it turned out that nurses who do take the time off, little pauses like to sit down and have a cup of coffee or take some time out to have a proper lunch, but also the bigger things like, I don't know what they came across. It was quite fun. It was rock climbing, salsa dancing, flower arranging, anything that would really take their mind off their work. Worked really well. It lowered the risks that nurses are specifically prone to, like neck complaints, back complaints, and all things like that. They had far more work joy, which is also a very important thing. And what was a really surprising thing too is that the client care was actually much better. So taking time to recharge is actually not only good for you, it also gives you a better result in the work that you do. So everybody benefits from that. So recharging, not selfish, necessary, I would say.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And one of the things when we were looking into all of this is energy is like a reservoir, and it's like your battery. If you keep it charged up and don't let it fall below 20%, then it actually charges up quite quickly.
Sure.
But if you think of our energy as like you use it and then it all drops down, it takes that much more to get it back to where it was. And exactly the same as your phone battery. If you let it go empty, then it takes an awful lot longer. It's that whole thing. I think we said it in the book. You cannot pour from an empty cup.
Yeah.
Well, I can tell you from experience, because I've been in a situation of experiencing a burnout, is that I think it goes the same with people that stop smoking after a heart attack or that go on a diet when they have a serious medical warning. I think that anyone who's had a real burnout will definitely tell you how important it is to not have your battery go completely empty, because I ended up that people had to take care of me for a while. I really had to unplug for a couple of months, and I was not so good for anything.
Yeah.
And it took a long time to get my battery full again. And it definitely made me very much aware that recharging is so important. And like a lot of people who have stopped smoking will tell you on and on how good it is to stop smoking. I will tell you, I'm really a big fan of warning people that to recharge on time. Yes, definitely.
So what can we do? Because there's that guilt that goes with taking time out.
And I think it's exactly that, isn't it? Because it's that we kind of know that we should take care of ourselves. We know that it's not a luxury, and yet we sort of treat it like it is, And yeah. I don't really, get it. We all do it, but at the same time, there's a big cognitive dissonance between what we actually do and what we actually know to be true. What is this? What's getting in the way? Why don't we take care of ourselves when actually it's not a luxury? It's not selfish to take care of ourselves. And yet we do seem to somehow believe it is.
I think it's in our culture. Like if you watch movies or you listen to someone who has passed away and they have a eulogy, they're always going on how selfless this person was and how much he. And in movies, the hero would rather die than bring himself to safety. So I think it's a cultural thing that we make heroes out of people who run on empty.
Yeah.
And I suppose it's also what's happening within the family. I know within my family, there's a whole thing, certainly with older parents, is that you spend your energy looking after them. And yeah, that's an interesting one.
No, but even if you're taking care of someone, it's still important to recharge in time. And everyone who's been in an airplane has heard it. Like when the oxygen masks drop down, first put on your own mask, because if you run out of oxygen, you won't be able to help another person. And like you said, no one expects the car to go on and on without without putting something in it to make it run. And nobody expects any device to work that hasn't been charged. And we do expect ourselves to go on and on without charging. So, yeah, we should make it normal, normalize it.
So what do we do? What are the tips we've got?
Well, I think that you need to know where you get energy from, and you need to speak out. You need to say, doesn't matter what situation you're in, you need to think of things that will give you energy. And I'll give you an example. Like, I grew up with deaf parents, and when my father died, my mother decided to move into a care home specially for deaf people, which was amazing because all the staff spoke sign language so they could communicate with my mother. It was wonderful. She was supposed to move in with her best friend, and just after they moved in, her best friend died. So my mother was there, and in theory, it was all amazing, but she didn't know anyone in the place because they were all deaf. But that doesn't mean you're all have the same interests or the same hobbies, or that doesn't automatically make them nice people, I can tell you. So my mother got very lonely. She also started to develop the first signs of Alzheimer. So I ended up going to my mother like 3 or 4 times a week, and I was having my own business. I had 4 young children at home, so it was draining. It was absolutely draining. And when I went to my mother, after 90 minutes of driving, you couldn't just sit down and say, "Hi, Mom, have a cup of coffee," and then go away. So it took a lot of time, and it was draining because my mother was sad. So I thought of something, but I wouldn't not do it because it was my mother, and I love her, and I wanted to take care of her. So I thought of a way that made it less draining, and it turned out really well because I started to taking people with me. So I had someone nice to talk to in the 90 minutes drive back and forth. It was super nice for my mom because she got distracted, and it was all people she hadn't seen in a long time. It restored old family ties because I brought nephews and nieces wherever I could find them. And also, when it became really draining at the end, I made sure that before I went to my mother, I would have an appointment set up with friends to have a drink afterwards, so I could like vent and we could have a good laugh, and I would have something to look forward to after this. Yeah, it was a draining situation. So it doesn't mean avoid all draining situations. Like sometimes you see a poster on Instagram like, "I won't have any negativity in my life." I don't believe in that because it's unavoidable. Things happen in life, and life has ups and downs. I'm just saying that make sure that, especially when you're experiencing a down thing, that you make sure that you get enough energy input somewhere and vent, blow off steam, do something.
Thank you for sharing that with us all, because I think it's such an important example of the big stuff, because it's kind of easy to say, go to bed early and do some exercise and do nutrition. And we all know these things. I mean, we don't actually always do things. I mean, knowing is not the same as doing. But there's also this big stuff. It's real. It happens. It
Definitely.
is super draining.
Yeah.
And we have to find ways of dealing with that stuff too. Because I think it's when we don't, we've got all of this low level stuff all the time, and then something big happens, and then you've got nothing left to give if we don't actually find ways of managing that and find ways of topping up.
But it's
still
very important to take good care of yourself when you're in a difficult situation, because when someone is going to do like a big achievement, let's say someone's going to run a marathon or participate in the Olympics, you be sure that they will have a good diet. They will make sure they have enough sleep. They have their vitamins. They have their rest. They have everything in place. While when you're going through something difficult in your life, being it a divorce or being it losing your job or changing jobs or even positive things like having a baby, you have to normalize taking good care of yourself and taking time for that.
Sorry, can I ask a question? So is things we always talk about having a good diet, sleep, and exercise as being the basics. But is one of the signs that things are going wrong is when those patterns change. So you stop eating the healthy food and your sleep is all over the place. Is that something we need to be looking out for?
I think we need to be aware of what our normal is, and also when we need to be perhaps doing it better. Do you know what I mean? Normal can be going to bed really late and getting up really early. It doesn't mean it's right. It doesn't mean it's healthy. It doesn't mean it's useful for us.
Yeah.
So I think it's both, isn't it? It's both knowing what our usual pattern is, but also paying attention to if we are feeling really tired, listening to what we need, listening to ourselves a little bit more.
Yeah.
And actually saying, you know what, I do need to have an early night, or I do need to just look at my bedtime routine and try and pull this all forward a bit and prioritize sleep. Or even, the food thing. I know that when I'm really busy, my sort of cooking routine and food tends to be one of the first things to fall off. And particularly, if you're cooking for a family and, you are the provider of meals, it's really draining. I mean, it in itself is draining. And I mean, one of the things I have found almost like a little hack is actually just cooking a bit more. That when I cook something that I know will be eaten, because that's really irritating when you cook. Oh, I don't like that. It's not what I wanted to eat today. That actually just cooking a bit more that I can put in the freezer or put in the fridge for another day, for a couple of days later. And that those days when you are tired, when you really can't be bothered to cook, you can pull something out, heat it up, and you have dinner for you all. And it's easy.
But this is also something you can really help other people with, because it is so important, because it's very easy to say, okay, we all know you need sleep, good food, rest, everything. But if you're in a terrible situation in your life, or in a new situation, even a positive one, when you have had a new baby, it's very hard, because you can say, I need a good night's sleep, but if you can't sleep because something is bothering you.
Yes.
But what I found really an eye-opener for me is that this is something you can help other people with. Because when you know that someone around you is going through a difficult situation, it is so good to bring them healthy food, because the cooking and the focus on healthy food is out the door, the first thing. So you can bring them healthy meals, and instead of taking them to a bar and feeding them a bottle of wine, which is also very helpful occasionally, you can also take them to a long walk along the beach, so they get some fresh air and some exercise in. So there are lots of ways that you can, because it's difficult when you go through a rough patch yourself, but seeing someone else around you going through it is also very difficult. And these things are something you can really help someone with.
I think that's such a wonderful observation as well, because I think if you've ever been on the receiving end of it, it is incredible. I know when I had a baby, I was astonished when my friends who had also had babies, they kind of knew there was like a code about this, that they just turned up and you didn't come empty-handed, you always brought food. But it just made the world of difference. But I think there's another piece to it that maybe, that some of us are very good at and some of us are not very good at, which is about asking for help, about asking for what we need. And sometimes that can be really hard, but actually working out what would be useful. My experience is people tend to want to help. They want to be able to do something useful and they don't know actually what would be useful. So saying, actually, could you mind the kids for an hour? Or could you, will you come for a walk with me? Or will you, do something that actually maybe feels a small ask, maybe it feels a massive ask, I don't know. But actually asking other people, I think, can really help replace those energy levels in a way that we perhaps don't expect it to.
And it's interesting because we all like to help.
Mm.
So it's wonderful when you're asked to help because you can
Sure.
help. But you're right, we don't like asking. I certainly
No.
don't like
And it's back into that little spiral, isn't it? Of when, of asking for when you need it, it being okay for somebody to say no, because that's the other side of this, isn't it? Is if you've asked, I have to do it for you, and that can be draining too if it's not something that you can easily do. So it's like getting that balance between what's the right level of ask,
No, but even in your day-to-day normal life, we should like normalize the importance of recharging. I think it's not
Yeah,
only
yeah.
when you're in a bad situation. We should just normalize it. Like I don't like to take my car to the garage to get it looked at, but I know that afterwards it will run better. And if I don't do it, I will end up at the side of the road with a car that won't bring me any further. So why don't we what's it called when you do a checkup? We should do regular checkups.
Yeah.
Like, how am I doing in my energy? And also thinking, okay, I'm going to take a time out to do this checkup on myself, and afterwards I'll run better. And
a self-reflection checkup. You
Yes.
mean you're not meaning going to the doctor, you mean just doing a self-checkup.
Just do you'll find one on a website to look at yourself, but do an inspection on how am I doing energy wise. Am I still doing the things I want to do? Is it what's costing me energy? And also take the time out to recharge. It's super important.
Yeah.
So what kind of things do you two do to recharge? What helps
Good
you
question.
with recharging?
Mine is to get outside and take a walk. I mean, I know it sounds really banal, but it is my thing that it really helps. That if I need some time for myself, if my son's driving me crazy, if I needed just a bit of calm time, or actually just thinking time, if I've got a problem at work that I'm trying to solve, I find it's really useful both from a creative point of view. I find that I can find the words for things in a way that I don't always find if I'm sitting at my desk trying to keep going, that it comes to me like that. So I just find it really covers a lot of ground, you know what I mean, just by
There's
getting
research
outside.
backing this up.
Well, there really is, you're right.
Yeah, and there's research that says that if you walk in a steady pace, that you stimulate your brain to solve some problems. It's really
Yeah, I mean, there was that paper in Nature as well about it, how actually it really improves mental health.
Yeah.
And the being outside in itself is a huge benefit, to the extent that doctors are
Definitely.
writing, activity prescriptions and going outside to
Wow.
actually improve
Yeah.
mental well-being. So yeah, mine is definitely get outside, go for a walk. What about you?
blowing off steam. Yes, that's the most important for me. If I don't blow off steam, I'll explode somewhere. So I make sure I do that a lot. So I did martial arts, fighting sports. I definitely loved Krav Maga because there was no rules. So you could kick, bite, anything you wanted. It was lovely. And the other thing is that when I feel like I have had a really busy time, I try to make some time off to book a comedy show, like a stand-up comedian or something. So when a night of laughter, and especially hearing other people laughing around you, and after that, I don't take life so seriously anymore. So
Cool.
And you,
What about
Carol?
Well, mine's always writing things down. And I'm not a regular journal. I don't keep a regular journal, but when things are bothering me, or when I feel like my life is being sucked out of me, then it's like get a pen and book and write it all down. And one day I will have to destroy all these journals. But it really is, the writing's terrible. Nobody will be able to understand them. But it really is that whole connection between hand and brain. And for some reason, once I've finished, I just feel a lot lighter, and things just don't worry me as much.
Lunchtime.
No, but I think the most important thing is that taking the time to charge yourself is not selfish. It's not a luxury. It's a necessity, and it will make you run better. And it will make you better in what you do.
Yeah.
Give you more energy.
And better for the people that are around
Absolutely.
you.
That-
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah, so if you want to serve others, actually, you have to look after yourself too.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Is that a good takeaway?
I think it is a good takeaway. Thank you very much for joining us in episode 3. We hope you have enjoyed this little series on energy. If you do have any thoughts or comments, please do drop us a line at hello@thehappyladder.org, because we would love to hear from you. Thank you from all of us, and we hope we shall join you again with another series soon.
Yes.
Thank you. Stay charged.
Bye.
As a reminder, the content of this podcast is for informational purposes only and is in no way intended to be a substitute for professional mental health advice or treatment. If you are experiencing extreme fatigue, a burnout, or mental challenges, please find someone to talk to and seek the help of a professional.